Welcome back to Ready Player None, the only podcast about the sunk cost fallacy. Today we're looking at level 3, as was foretold by the prophecy. Wade now has the crystal key, meaning he's at the top of the scoreboard. Again. And Sixers and Gunters alike have converged on the location of the final gate, Castle Anorak, on the planet Clonia. I've seen Welsh words that are easier to pronounce. With 100 pages to go, let's see if it all kicks off in Chapter 28. And kick off it does. When the IOI corporate police came to arrest me, I was right in the middle of the movie Explorers, 1985, directed by Joe Dante. I'm sure this scene of a character being dragged out of his home is going to be presented with all the seriousness that idea commands. So while Wade is watching some movie I don't care about, he's also monitoring his apartment building's security cameras. A vehicle pulls up known as an IOI Indentured Servant Retrieval Transport, with siren wailing and lights flashing. 5 people step out. 4 jack-booted, riot-helmeted drop cops, and a bureaucrat in a suit. Their IOI badges allow them access into the apartment building past the security checkpoint. As they head up in the lift, Wade, noting the fear in my own voice, gives a voice command to Max Headroom to enter lockdown mode. Supposedly this executes a long series of pre-programmed actions, both online and in the real world, but the only one in evidence so far is the war door swinging down, reinforcing his apartment's security door. With the corridor's security cam, he watches as the drop cops head down towards his apartment. They're carrying stun guns and plasma welders. I wasn't surprised to see them. I knew why they were here. They were here to cut open my apartment and pull me out of it like a chunk of spam being removed from a can. Yes, very serious. Very respectful. The scanner on his apartment door tells him that they are IOI credit officers with a valid indenturement arrest warrant for one Bryce Lynch, his assumed identity and Max Headroom reference. It's with this authority that they were allowed to enter the apartment block in the first place, and it also opens his automated apartment doors. But not the war door. Of course, the drop cops expected me to have redundant security, which is why they'd brought plasma welders. The man in the suit accesses Wade's door intercom. His name and corporate title appeared on my display. Michael Wilson, IOI Credit and Collections Division, employee number IOI 481231. Wilson introduces himself and refers to a clipboard. Supposedly, Wade's missed 3 payments on his IOI Visa card, and he has a $20,000 outstanding balance. Our records also show that you are currently unemployed and have therefore been classified as impecunious. I hate people who want to show off the large vocabulary. It's so pestiferous. Apparently, this debt qualifies him for mandatory indenturement. The drop cops are there to take him and put him away until he can pay all his fees. Wade quips, "Sure thing, guys. Just give me a minute to get my pants on, then I'll be right out." Wilson tells him that if he's not out within 10 seconds, they're authorized to enter by force. He doesn't even seem to wait 10 seconds because he immediately gives the nod to one of the drop cops to start welding through the titanium plating of the war door. A second welder starts to go through the wall. They knew the walls of each apartment were lined with steel plating and a layer of concrete, which they could cut through much more quickly than the titanium war door. But Wade's prepared for that as well. His apartment's kitted out with a sage cage, yet another product name that's 2 words together in camel case. The walls, floor and ceiling of his apartment are also titanium reinforced. But that would only gain him an extra 5 or 6 minutes. I'd heard that drop cops had a nickname for this procedure, cutting an indent out of a fortified residence so they could arrest him. They called it doing a C-section. Gross. I dry swallowed 2 of the anti-anxiety pills I'd ordered in preparation for this day. I'd already taken 2 earlier this morning, but they didn't seem to be working. How do you think medicine works, you jackass? Then he sets his Oasis account's security to maximum, taking one last look at the scoreboard to see that it hasn't changed within the past several days. Artemis is now in first place, followed by Parzival, Sorrento, H, 3 6s, Shoto, and 2 remaining 6s in the top 10. His fellow Gunters had cleared the second gate and got the crystal key within 48 hours of him emailing them. They've tried to contact Wade back since, but he's not been responding to anything. I saw no reason to tell them what I intended to do. They couldn't do anything to help me and would probably just try to talk me out of it. He takes one last look at his avatar's stronghold, wondering if it was for the last time. No, not my running macro Falco gag! After several deep breaths, he logs out of the Oasis and his avatar lands in his office, a standalone simulation on his hard drive. I opened a console window and keyed in the command word to activate my computer's self-destruct sequence. Storm. This begins to wipe out everything on his hard drive, and Wade bids a sad whispered farewell to breakout character Max Headroom, who definitely didn't appear in this book under license. Wade pulls off his visor and his apartment's full of smoke from the welders. The drop cop at his door finishes first, and a big lump of metal falls forward into his apartment. After the team uses a freezing foam to cool the edges of the door, they step in, guns raised. One of the cops is on him immediately, stun gun directly in his face. "Don't move," he shouted, "or you get the juice, understand?" This is how Ernest Cline thinks movie tough guys talk. To be fair, at this point, Wade is a thin, pale, hairless Nosferatu of a man. I'd want him where I could see him as well. So the second cop to crawl inside, without a word, he walked over and jammed a ball gag in my mouth. What? This was standard procedure because they didn't want me to issue any more voice commands to the computer. There's got to have been a better type of gag to have thought of. I always knew the Sixers were kinky ever since Sorrento showed up in that bodysuit. Wade is ripped out of his haptic chair, but the drop cops were too late. An incendiary device has already destroyed his computer. While Wade steels himself for the horrifying prospect of going outside, Wilson expresses his disappointment that he could have repossessed the computer, sold it, and put the money towards repaying his debt. I couldn't reply around the ball gag, so I just shrugged and gave him the finger. You gave him the finger where? They tear Wade out of his haptic suit and he's completely naked underneath. Presumably he's also covered in sucker marks from the haptic suit's tactile feedback thing. That's a pleasant image. They gave me a disposable slate grey jumpsuit to put on with matching plastic shoes. The suit felt like sandpaper, and it began to make me itch as soon as I put it on. They drag him out of the apartment, and his narration tries to make it some big cinematic moment. The harsh fluorescence sucked the colour out of everything and made it look like an old black and white film. You know, like fluorescent lights have never actually done. As we rode the elevator down to the lobby, I hummed along with the muzak as loudly as I could to show them that I wasn't afraid. You are afraid, though. Poor sentence structure. You've demonstrated you are afraid. Have you considered to try and convince them I wasn't afraid? Just a note. Down in the lobby, before they take him outside, they put him in a big hooded coat. He's company property now. And it's snowing and icy cold outside. They drag him to this transport truck they have. They've already taken 2 other people today, and they're both strapped into their chairs with visors on. The indent on my right was a tall, thin guy, probably a few years older than me. He looked like he might be suffering from malnutrition. Well, you're one to talk. You're a spectral cryptid who lives on takeaway food, and says right here you haven't left your apartment in 6 months. The other indent was morbidly obese. Rude. And I couldn't be sure of the person's gender. I decided to think of him as male. F*** off. The second person's face is obscured by a mop of blonde hair, with something like a gas mask on their nose and mouth. Wade's not sure what the gas mask's for until the person lurches forward and vomits into it. I heard a vacuum activate, sucking the indent's regurgitated Oreos down the tube and into the floor. What? Why is this person vomiting? Why does Wade think that they need to keep the vomit on file? And why did you say regurgitated Oreos? Do you want me to read this as a horrifying circumstance? Or do you want me to be taken out of the drama by your references to a popular cookie brand? A drop cop takes off the ball gag and asks if Wade needs a mask himself. So what, are they just throwing up because they've been taken out of their houses? They strap Wade in a seat directly opposite the skinny guy. As they drive him away, Wade looks up to his apartment, thinking about all his possessions that are now being disassembled and taken away for auction. His apartment would be cleaned by custodial bots. And apart from a bill of the cost of repairs added to his outstanding debt, there'd be no evidence that he ever stayed there. I wish my brain had no evidence that this book ever existed inside it. As the block goes out of view, one of the cops puts a visor on his head. I found myself sitting on a sandy white beach, watching the sunset while waves crashed in front of me. This must be the simulation they used to keep indents calm during the ride downtown. It's a magical place. That's what my listeners love, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. references. Despite his hands being cuffed, Wade nudges the visor off his face. I craned my head again to stare out the window. I hadn't been out here in the real world for a long time, and I wanted to see how it had changed. End chapter 28. That felt bad. I feel really underqualified to properly elucidate what I'm feeling right now. But it feels like Ernest just repurposed a lot of the imagery associated with taking away and disappearing persecuted groups and applied it to his straight white male protagonist? Are gamers the most persecuted minority? I don't know, bad taste in the mouth from this one, and not just because of the ball gag. I don't know, bad chapter. Oh, that's a cursed thought. Is Wade the internet hard man that completely crumbles when you meet him in real life? Brilliant. This is just a transitionary chapter. The real action is presumably going to start at flipping IOI's concentration camp or whatever. We'll see how that pans out. That's something to look forward to next episode, isn't it? For more from an internet tough guy who turns out to be a shrinking violet in real life, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheLastGherkin, or follow the show on Twitter at @RPN_pod. Watch with subtitles on YouTube, The Last Gherkin, or get an MP3 download at thelastgherkin.podbean.com. Join us next time as Ernest Cline rips off the Shawshank Redemption or something. Bye! I turned my head while I was speaking. The only podcast about the sunk cost fallacy. Glottal stop. I dry swallowed 2 of the anti-anxiety pills. I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. And his apartment's full of smoke from the Velders. They gave me a disposable slate gay.